Chapter 28. Hermetically Sealed. As Rose raced past the dark windows of the manuscriptorium, Marcia was inside struggling to place a locking band around Marin's wrists. Marin was fighting her all the way, and Marcia was shocked at how powerful he had become. She was using the strongest restraint she could without putting him at risk, and still he was not totally subdued. Marin's dark eyes blazed with anger, and his feet twitched as he tried to kick out. The gold on his two-faced ring flashed as he pulled and twisted his wrists, stretching the locking band almost to the breaking point. After a torrent of verbal abuse, Marcia had also placed a silent on Marin, but that did not stop his mouth moving. Marcia was, to her regret right then, a good lip-reader. A loud knocking came suddenly on the outside door. Marcia looked annoyed. "Beetle, see who it is, and tell them to go away." Beetle went into the front office. He opened the door to find Marcellus Pye on the other side. "Ah, Scribe Beetle." Marcellus sounded relieved. "I am glad it is you." Beetle had long ago given up trying to explain to Marcellus Pye that he was no longer, and indeed never had been, a scribe at the manuscriptorium. "Excuse me, Mr. Pye," he said, closing the door. "We're a bit busy at the moment." Marcellus stuck his foot in the door. "I have just been to the palace for the party, only to find there is a safety curtain up." He sounded worried. "My apprentice, Septimus Heap, was going there, and I am concerned for his safety. I thought I'd call in on my way to the Wizard Tower. Is he here by any chance?" "No, he's not. I haven't seen him, and no, before you ask, I don't know where he is." Beetle sounded annoyed. He was tired of everyone asking him about Septimus. "Excuse me, Mr. Pye, but do you mind leaving now? We have things to do. Would you mind moving your foot, please?" But Marcellus did not move. His attention was suddenly taken by something down at the palace end of Wizard Way. Beetle took the opportunity to close the door. He had to lean against it hard to shut it, and as he turned the key, he saw that Marcellus was executing an odd kind of dance. Beetle decided to ignore him. Marcellus began banging on the door. Marcia came in from the front office, grasping Marin by his locking band. Jilly Jin trailed behind like a ghost. "Beetle, what's going on?" Marcia demanded. "It's Marcellus," said Beetle. "He won't go. He's looking for Septimus." A look of concern flashed across Marcia's face. "But I thought Septimus was with him." "Apparently not," said Beetle, a trifle sulkily. "What's that in the door?" asked Marcia. A long, thin piece of red leather was poking between the door and the door jamb. "Oh," said Beetle, "it's his shoe." He unlocked the door, and it flew open to reveal Marcellus Pye, equally irritable on the other side, nursing the squashed tip of his precious red shoe, a birthday present from Septimus a few years back. "It's ruined," said Marcellus. "Look." He pointed to the torn ribbons that were tied just below his knee. "You shouldn't wear such ridiculous shoes," snapped Marcia. "Well, you'd know all about that, Marcia," Marcellus retorted. While Marcia and Marcellus were bickering, something had caught Beetle's attention. The two torches burning on either side of the palace gate had just gone out. Beetle had a bad feeling. Why had both torches gone out at the same time? He soon had his answer. "No, it can't be," he gasped. "What?" asked Marcia, stopping midway through a shoe-based insult. Beetle pointed down Wizard Way. Like water through a sluice gate, the thick fog of the dark domain was pouring out through the palace gate and swirling into the lower reaches of Wizard Way. "The safety curtain! It's been breached!" "What?" Marin smirked. "Marcellus," said Marcia, "make yourself useful for once. Hold on to this creature for me. I must see what's happening." She handed Marin over to Marcellus and hurried out into Wizard Way. She was just in time to see the first torch at the palace end of the way extinguished by what looked like a bank of black fog. Marcia ran back into the front office, slammed the door, and leaned against it. She looked as white as a sheet of best manuscriptorium paper. "You're right, it's breached." And then, to Beetle's shock, Marcia swore. Marin broke through his silence with a snigger. Marcia glared at him. "You won't be laughing soon, Marin Meredith," she snapped. "Not when we are getting that paired code out of you." Marin went pale. He hadn't thought about that. "Get him out of here, Marcellus," said Marcia. "Beetle, you take Miss Jin. We must get back to the Wizard Tower. Now." Beetle was reluctant. "But we can't abandon the manuscriptorium," he said. "The manuscriptorium must take its chance." Beetle was horrified. "No! If the dark domain gets in, everything will be destroyed. all the arcane magic in the hermetic chamber, and in the old chamber of alchemy. It will all be gone. Nothing will remain. Nothing. Beetle, I'm sorry, there is nothing we can do. Yes, there is, Beetle retorted. The hermetic chamber can be hermetically sealed. That's why it's built like it is, and the extraordinary wizard can seal it. That is true, isn't it? Marcia answered with great reluctance. Yes, it is true, but to seal Miss Jinn in there would be nothing short of murder. She wouldn't know what was happening to her. She'd have no chance. But I might, said Beetle quietly. You? Yes, seal me in the hermetic chamber. I'd guard it. Marcia was grave. Beetle, there's only enough air for about 24 hours. After that, you'll have to do a suspension. You do know that not all those sealed in the chamber have survived, don't you? I'll take a chance. 50-50 isn't bad. Marcia shook her head. So often Beetle knew far more than she expected. 3 lived, 3 died, she muttered. Not great odds. Could be worse. Please, Marcia, I don't want to lose the manuscriptorium. I'd do anything to stop that. Anything. Marcia knew that Beetle was not going to change his mind. Very well, Beetle. I'll do as you ask. I'll activate the hermetic seal. Leaving Marcellus Pye with a firm grasp on Marin, and Jilly Jinn staring into space, Marcia and Beetle made their way to the entrance of the 7-cornered passage. They stopped outside. You'll find the secret siege drawer in the table by tapping the tiny black circle in the center 7 times. The drawer contains emergency supplies and the suspension charm with instructions, Marcia told him. I know, said Beetle. You're a brave young man, Beetle. Good luck. Thanks. Marcia wondered if she'd ever see Beetle again. Right then, you'd better go in. As soon as you get into the chamber, sit in the chief hermetic scribe's seat. It's in the very center, and you'll be all right there. The sealing magic will be very intense, and that isn't always pleasant. Oh, right. Marcia gave Beetle a strained smile. I'll count to 21, and then I'll activate the seal. Understood? Yep. I'll count too. 1, 2. Beetle was gone. He ran through the narrow stone archway into the darkness of the 7-cornered passageway, and before he had finished counting to 10, he was in the brightness of the circular hermetic chamber. Feeling as though he shouldn't, Beetle sat down in the chief hermetic scribe's seat at the table, and still counting, he watched the archway that he had just run through. The next few seconds were the longest of his life. The activating of the seal began. A hissing sound filled the chamber, immediately followed by a rush of cold air as the seal was driven along the 7-cornered passage. Beetle watched in awe as a shining wall of purple magic came around the last corner and stopped at the arch that led into the chamber. The brilliant magical light pulsed over the archway, and the circular white walls of the chamber intensified it, sending currents of magic swirling, while Beetle sat in the calm at the very center of it, hardly daring to breathe. After a few minutes he could see that the purple light was beginning to fade. Wisps of magic were drifting off. They hung in the air, and the bittersweet taste of magic caught in Beetle's throat and made him cough. As the last vestiges of magic disappeared, Beetle understood what it meant to be sealed in the chamber. Where the arch had been, there was now solid wall, indistinguishable from any other part of the walls that surrounded him. He was entombed. Above his head rose the dome of white stone that formed the ceiling of the hermetic chamber, and below his feet was the sealed hatch to the ice tunnels. Remembering what Marcia had told him, Beetle tapped the tiny black circle in the center of the table 7 times. A small drawer below the table sprung open. He reached in for the suspension charm, and drew out a handful of licorice bootlaces.